So hello everyone, and then welcome to Introduction to Python module. I'm Sampath Galla, Senior Lecturer attached to the Department of Computer Engineering. Let me now briefly go through our training program. What I'm planning to cover. Basically, I assume that you don't have any knowledge on programming. So the content here is very basic. And as I told you earlier, if you feel that it's too basic, please let me know so we can skip some of the stuff. But in other case, right, I'm going to assume that you don't have any background in programming. So that's how I'm going to think about the group. But I know that the level of understanding of the programming will be different because I have seen already some of you already know stuff, some of you don't know. So that's where actually I have put up pre-survey as well. So let's see how far we can go together. So let me go to the content. Right. So here are the things that I'm actually going to talk about. We'll spend about like this session and hopefully the other session about talking about the basics in Python. And then in the basics, I'm told first mainly focus on the different data types available in Python. So Python is a language where it's not like a C where you have to define the variables in the beginning. You have Python is quite relaxed actually. So very same variable, you can use it to store many different types of data. So you will see. So in a way that this could be a one advantage sometimes when you work with the data as well. So then we are going to talk about the different control structures available, like if statements, while loops, for loops, and how Python handles it, and also maybe difference with the others. Then we are going to talk about the modularization, meaning like how to write a function, how to reuse whatever you have already written. That means we will create like custom Python modules. So that's what we are going to do as the third topic. Then we are going to look at the input and output. So that means, first of all, when we cover the basics, we'll talk about the basic input and output, and then when it comes to the fourth topic, we will focus on how we can handle file inputs. So this will be one of the topics that you need because so right now most of your task is how do you analyze the data stored in as files. So we will talk about here how you may actually create your own files in Python, which means sometimes it's you need this knowledge because so to create reports and so on. So that part we will cover as the fourth topic. Now then we'll move on to data structures, which means we will discuss different ways of handling data in Python, like lists. So some of you have already learned the arrays. So all the arrays are implemented as list in Python, and then how to handle strings, especially very important when you work with the customer information. And then also other methods available to handle the data. So we will talk about the implementations of stack and queues and so on. Then as the next topic, object-oriented programming, we are going to very briefly going to talk about the object-oriented concepts, how it is implemented in Python. Main focus is given for how to access the variables and the functions within these object-oriented principles in Python, because everything in Python is implemented as classes, right? Even the data types we will discuss later on, they are implemented as classes. So object-oriented principles you should know to start with. Then we will also look at quality assurance aspect of it. What are the good programming practices, especially there are some things that used in Python. We sometimes used to call Pythonian way, and also like test-driven development, like how do you like performs test, and sometimes how do you incorporate test into your code itself. So in Python we have PyDocs as well as PyTest. So these are like two techniques that we use in Python to make sure that whatever the code written in good quality. And the last part, we'll actually going to look at the data part of it, like numerical computations, how we are going to handle. We are going to work on numerical Python, matplotlib, as well as the basic use of machine learning libraries. So that will be the last topic. So these are the various topics that actually I plan to cover within 8 sessions. For the environment or software tools, I'm going to use two things. In the beginning, I'm going to use the standard Python environment, which is called idle. That means when you install Python naturally without any other, Anaconda or something, but if you just install Python from python.org, so you will get the standard Python idle environment. And then there are many other IDs available like PyCharm and so on. But I will be stick on Python idle environment so that everybody is comfortable. And second part, like when it comes to data part of it, I'm going to use Jupyter notebooks. So you can, I hope those who already work on this area, that you can write your code as a notebook where you can have your text as well as code is in one single place. So there are two implementations. You can use online implementation like the very famous place is use of Google Colab, like Google Docs. Now Google offers you analytics platform as well. So it is called Google Colab, where you can visit colab.research.google.com, where you can write your own notebook there, and they will give you cloud computing backend as well. So you can, run your code there itself, right? Or else, if you are interested in having a local version of this, now earlier we used to use Jupyter Notebook. Now we switch to Jupyter Lab, where you can install Jupyter Lab in your machine, right? So I'll be discussing how you may do it when it comes to work with these, right? So first, I think one of the requirement is you need to install Python if you have not already done, because I'm going to use the basic commands today. So I assume that you will also have the required Python environment. But if not, don't worry, because the very first session today, we are going to focus only on very basics, and that can be done even with the online as well. So I'll come to that point, right? And if you're asking me the references, these are the primary references that I use to deliver the course, especially Python one, not the data analytics one. So data analytics, I have a separate link. If you're interested, please let me know. You know that Andrew Neg is the person who developed a lot of platforms and quite popular in the machine learning and data analytics area. So he has written a book, and that is what actually I'm referring nowadays. If anyone asks like what to look for, that is my recommendation. So if you're interested, please let me know. So I will share that reference as well. So otherwise, if you are just a starter, you can simply read these references. The first one is more theoretical one, like it will talk about, in the computer science perspective, how you may use Python, but it has a nice written text where you can learn a lot. But if you simply want to know the commands, how get things done, maybe you can refer the second link, where in W3 schools offer many languages. So I hope you are already familiar, right? Okay, so that's the plan. Any comments if you want to know anything before we proceed? So you can always raise your hands if you have any comments, or if you want to ask a question, or you can simply use chat session. So I'll be using your chat session. I'm monitoring time to time. So if you have any questions you have in mind, you can even share with everyone, or you can just direct it to myself. Right. Assuming you have no questions, so let me start formally the module. So let me briefly talk about a little bit about the Python programming language and why Python. Now, as already you have witnessed that many prefers to learn Python nowadays. It's quite popular. And just by knowing Python, I think you can land a lot of jobs as well. And especially if your aim is to learn many things in data analytics, Python is way to go because there are a lot of libraries available and also people sharing their answers. But to understand and make use of it, you should know Python, right? So whether we like it or not, since you guys are working on data analytics, I think you had to learn. Right now, it's Python, right? But there are other features in Python also. This is got popular among various fields. Like if you look at the use of Python, now it's not only in engineering, medicine, right, biology, finance, right? Especially now you guys work in the finance, cost reduction. I heard some of you talk about everywhere now Python is used, right? Python is so quite popular, and let's see what are the features. Now, first one is it's very simple. You will see. Now, if you already know Java, I think you know that how hard it is to begin to learn Java, like printing something. Whereas in Python, it just will be a print function, and it's easy to learn. That means there are a lot of resources are there, and it's not too technical, right? It's very easy to learn even by yourself. So if you like just start even listening how to install Python, and even once you get the very first basics, you can be your own and you can learn by yourself. And once you've written your code, you can use it anywhere. Like we know that in mobile phone also, like quite powerful, we can run programs. So you can basically have a Python compiler in your mobile, right? At the same time, so all the supercomputers, right? If you write it one place and you can put it everywhere. So you can write mobile applications from Python, and you can have web applications in Python, and then you can do administration, like especially network administrators. Now you are using Python scripts, right? So which means once you write it, you can, use it everywhere. And there are other popular one as well. It's free and open source, high level language, like in C, like in Java, right? And it's portable. Once you've written, you can use it. It's interpreted, which means, okay, so before when you have like programming languages, there are two ways that you can handle. One is compiled language. That means before you run the code, you have to convert your high-level code into machine code. But in interpreted versions, you don't have to do that, right? You can even convert one line or like couple of lines at a time, so that if there are any error, so you can run the code up to that particular place, whereas it is not possible with the compiled language. So you have to, correct all the mistakes before you will be able to run the code. Right. And it supports many different paradigms of writing programs, like functional programming, like object-oriented, right? So that is also one of the things that why Python is, popular. And it's extensible, which means that if you do not have required function in Python, you can use C to extend it, right? So likewise, so it's extensible, it's embeddable, meaning like you can call some functionally within other programming languages. And last ones, the other one is you have a lot of libraries available. So for example, if you want to develop games in Python, you have a module called Pygame. Data analytics, we have NumPy, Matplotlib, Seaborn, right? There are a lot of visualization libraries, and then we have pandas, quite popular, right? And machine learning libraries, scikit-learn, TensorFlow, right? There are a lot of libraries out there, right? And also, like when you look at the big data analytics, as well as like cloud computing, and if you look at the implementations, right, it's Python, what we call the pipelines are there, where you can, when you want to create a production system, Python is also one of the choice, right? So having said that, you can see why Python language is actually quite popular nowadays. Right. Having said that, let me start to introduce the Python. So the first one, actually, I'm going to talk about with the two modes available, right? Like, like in, some other programming language, there are two modes available in Python as well. One is called interactive mode, which means you can just type short commands and you can get the outcome like in a shell. So we will also have a shell in Python. And the second one, we will also have a script mode, right? So basically we are going to first look at these two modes. We can start with the interactive mode or we can interrupt the script mode, right? But simply, you hopefully know what a program is, right? So basically, the program that we are going to write is you have a bunch of commands to do something. Basically, you can solve a simple problem, right? So only way is you should know how you may, model the problem, right? So it might be solving some set of equations. Maybe you are finding some mathematical formula, like you are getting roots of a polynomial, or maybe if you work with the data, you are searching something and change something in the document, or maybe even go further, like maybe you can predict some weather condition, which might be quite complex, right? So having said that, let me now start the first program. So I'm going to share my screen. Right. First of all, let me briefly discuss where to get Python. Right. So let me go to Python official page. So if you just type www.python.org, right? So this is the Python home page. So if you are interested in installing, and if you have not done already, so you can go to downloads. When you click this tab, you will see it will automatically select the latest version. Now, right now it's 3.10, right? And so you can click on that one. So if you have an earlier version of Windows, it will prompt accordingly. Now, for example, they say that version 3.9 onwards, you cannot run in Windows 7 or earlier. And if you're running a Mac operating system or Linux, right, depend on your operating system, it will prompt for the installation. So you can click and it will download and you can install. So once you have downloaded it, you can double click it and click install now button. With the default one, it will install in your system, right? Now, if you already have Python in your machine, right? Now, what we have to do is you click run, or maybe you can click start button and find it. Simply type IDLE. So IDLE is the term that we use. Interactive Development and Learning Environment. IDLE, idle we call it. And when you click idle, so you should be getting a shell, something similar to this. And then you will see three angular brackets like this, and there will be a prompt, and it will wait for commands. Right. If you have done up to this point, can you raise your hands? So in here, the Zoom, you can go to right now I can see. Yeah, please raise your hand and keep it like this until I have asked you to lower the hand. Right now I can see Menak and Shashika raise their hands, which means they have the shell with them. How about the others? Do you already have Python installed, or are you installing right now?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Sampath.
Yep. Samali.
Yeah, I can't install to the Office PC because I don't have admin access. I have to go through a separate flow to install that.
Okay. So
It
then,
cannot be done immediately.
yeah. So then what you could do is in Python itself, you have this interactive. You can see this yellow button. It will call launch interactive shell. For the time being, you click that and you will get the same environment in the Python website itself.
Okay.
So
Thank you
those
so much.
who do not have access to installation, now in this one, you will see now Python 3.9.5 and it will accepting commands. Right. And I hope now you can raise your hand. So in a way, like if you have either this one or you have a Python ID. Okay, how about the others? Keep on, your hand. So if you want to raise your hand, go to reactions, go to more and go to reactions and click raise hand. So I am waiting for the others to raise their hands. About Gayasha, Aruna, Binara, any issues you might facing right now? Vachini, like what is the status?
I tried to download but didn't was not able to. Can you please show me how to do that other option?
Okay, you
I
just
cannot
type,
download.
yeah. I will repeat, like those who have issues with installations, please go to python.org website. And when you go to the first front page itself, you see a yellow color button which launch the interactive shell. Just click that and there'll be a interactive session will be there. So you can just type command. Now, for example, the very first command we are going to learn is called print, how to print something like, let's say print. I'm going to use a single quote, hello world. And I will close it single quote and I close the bracket. If I press enter, you will get hello world. About Taranga, Ravindu, Pumi, Janaka, Binara. About Gayasha. Pachini, are you okay now? Have you got this?
Yes.
Well, you have got it, right. Aruna?
Yes, I am okay.
Okay, thanks. Right. Pumi, Ravindu Supur. Right, thanks. So I hope everyone now comfortable with the shell. Either you will have this shell, Python shell, in my case, actually it's version 3.8.5. Or else you can use the web version, right? So you can python.org if you go there. And I told you like in the front screen, there'll be a yellow button which will call launch interactive shell. If you click it, you can get the Python shell there, right? Okay, let's start. Now, the very first command, as I told you earlier, is the use of print function. You can use print and within bracket, you can type anything you want. Let's say you are printing a number, let's say 5. It just say print 5. And if you need to decimal number with the decimal places, you can say, let's say 8.5. So you can have 8.5 like this. But if it is a message like dialogue, right, you have to either use single quote or double quotes. The difference I will discuss later on. For the time being, you can try with single quote or double quote. Right. Okay, now you can lower your hand. Right, good. Yes. So those who have already have the basics, so you can skip these sessions. But remember to come for the quizzes. So from the second session onwards, I will have a small quiz based on the previous one. So you can stay with the quiz and then you can left the others. Okay, Shashika. Right. Okay. Let me talk about the next way of working in Python. That means, okay, so you have to install Python for this one. So those who do not have installation, you can skip that. Right now, if you already have installed, those who have installation only, you can work on this one. So you can click File, New File. So when you say File, New File, you should get a new window. Now let me split my screen. So I will split my screen. So one side we have the shell, right? So half of the screen I have the shell now, and half of this screen I have the new file. So file, new file will give you a window to write Python file. Right now, in this method, what I'm going to do, we are going to write a small Python script and we are going to save it, right? So especially when you want to write a lengthy program in Python, so usually you can have a new window, you can type the commands and you can save it, right? Similar thing, I'm going to do it here as well. So you can say print, I'm going to say hello world, right? Now you can save the file. So I'm going to say save. So I'll go to desktop. Let me create a dialog. And then let me say, I'm going to name a file. So I'm going to say hello world, right? So when I click save, now you will notice in the title, you can say hello world.py, which means I have successfully written a Python script. And now you can run this. Now to run whatever you have inside the Python script, you can say run module. And when you click run module, you should see the output in the Python shell. So when I run this, you should see the output in the shell. So let's see, I'm going to say run module, and you see the output will be in the Python shell. Okay, those who finish up to this point, can you please raise your hands? So this is pretty basic, right? As I told you earlier, I'm assuming that you don't have any experience in Python. So assuming that, so in this particular case, we have seen how to create a small Python script separately. Now to do this, you have to select file, new file, and then you will get the empty window. You type Python commands there and you save it. After saving, you can choose run module, or the shortcut key is F5. And when you say run module, you will see the output in the Python shell. Right. So we have Tarindu Ishani, now they have completed. How about the others? Keep on raising your hands so that I can help the others. By the way, if you need something to clarify, please let me know in the chat. So I will see only 4 participants raising their hands. To raise your hand, you have to go to more and then go to reactions. Under reaction, there's a place called raise hand button. You can click it there. Right now, about 8 participants in the class raised their hands. So how about the others? Right. Those who do not have a install, so you have to wait until you install the Python in your machine. So hopefully from next week, we can get ready. Right. Okay. Thanks, guys. You can lower the hand now.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But when I download it, downloads exe file, but it is not open like a shell.
So once you download, you need to install. So in my case, so if I go to my downloads, so can you see here we have exe file? Yes. And then you double click on it. And you should see something like this and click install now. And then you have to accept the changes to the device. And when you click yes, now installation goes on. So this will actually install Python 3.10.0 in my machine. It will take a couple of minutes, maybe 1 to 2 minutes time. It's quite fast. And once you do this, you can type idle or you can go to main menu, right? Right. So the setup is successful. So were you able to get that message in your machine?
Yes.
Okay. So you close it. Now, if you go to your main, right? So under Python now, I should see in my case now, I think there should be multiple Python versions. So for example, if I go here, you see I have 3.8, 3.9 and 3.10. I have just installed. So let me start that shell, go to there and we have idle Python. So I'm going to click this and you should get a shell like this.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I got it.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Chamar, you can use the web version of it, but only problem is you can't create files. So that's okay, because today I'm not going to talk about Python writing Python script. I'm going to only focus on very simple Python commands only. So it's perfectly all right if you have not installed Python today. So, but make sure that for our next session on Friday, you have installed Python, right? So now I will go back to my slide. So let me quickly go to the content. Right. Hope you can see the slides. Okay. Right. Now let's move on. right? We have already seen the two, modes. One is use of shell. So that is what we will see here. So when you just type print hello world, we got the output hello world. Next one, now write in the first script. Now for that, I told you to go to idle, go to file, new window, and then you type the code, you save it, right? To run the program, what you need to remember is you select run module. That also we have done. Now this was the file I have written. So actually I type only this line only, but you can have extra information like the very first line. So this is important because like if you're planning to implement or use your code in Linux and Mac operating system, so you might need this very first line because this will give you path to where the Python is installed, right? In both Linux and Mac operating system. Others are for our information only. So these are anyway, by the way, these are the comments, which means Python just ignore these lines. The lines start with hash. And you can have things like the file name, who has written it, and the date you have written, and so on, which might be important for you to further development of the code. Right. And then I also have given you the explanation. The first line I told you it's a special case where you can run in Linux and Unix system. And the line 2 to 5, they are comments. And finally, the fifth one is the only Python statement. We have a print function. Okay, now let's briefly look at the debugging, which means like there might be errors in Python. Few errors, most common errors are syntax errors, which means you type, something wrong. Now, right now, we have learned only print function, but if let's say you type print but with P capital, Python give you an error, right? So let me quickly show you. Right, in this particular case, I'm going to get the shell. Okay, so it's not the shell. So I'll be taking the shell here. Okay, so this is the shell. Right now, print will work. Let's say print dialog. No issue, it will print dialog. But let's say you type capital P instead of simple P. And then Python interpreter will tell us, right, there's nothing called print. There's no function called print. It'll actually give you a name error, but you see the problem is the capitalization here, right? Now, similarly, there are other problems as well. So when you run a program, due to errors, right, the program will stop at the middle of the program. So then mostly it will be because of runtime errors. Then we have semantic errors, which means you will get an answer, but that answer is incorrect. Now, for example, especially, let's say, what do you call this? The meaning, so you need to do multiplication, but let's say mistakenly you perform addition. You will get the results, but we know the result is incorrect. So this is what we call semantic errors. So you have to be very careful about these kind of, errors that you may make. Okay, so when you run into problem, so always better to get help, right? Now getting help, maybe the simplest way to do this is you just Google it. Whenever there's an error, I hope majority of us tend to type in Google and hopefully Google may give us the correct answer. But there will be a built-in help in Python. Now, for example, if you want to know more about the print function, you can take help and print. So I will go to my Python interpreter key in the Python shell. So let me go to shell, right? Okay, now, for example, if I want to know more details about the print, I can say, okay, help, within bracket, I can say print. So this is to request Python interpreter tell us bit about print function. And it will tell you like what are the options available with the print function. Right now you will see it will tell, okay, print you see value and then some 3 dots, which means you can have multiple values if you want. Now, for example, I can say, okay, print, right? And then let's say hello, and then world separately. Sorry, I made a mistake by entering this. I have to end a single quote and enter. So you see hello word there. Okay. Now, if you want more than 2, that is also possible. So you can comma separate. So we can say print, right? Dialog, comma, right? Python, comma, for, comma, data analytics. So you see, I have 4 values within the print function, comma separated. So I'm getting, something like this, right? But then again, there are more advanced use of print as well. So look at this sep. Sep means separation, right? So what will be in the middle of several values, right? So this indicates a space, right? For example, when I say print hello, comma, world. So there will be a space in between with hello and world. So that's the default value. But let's say you need a colon within this. So you can say, okay, print hello, world. And then I can say sep equals, right, within quotes, you can have a colon like this, right? And then when you close the bracket and press enter, now you see, right, you have a colon in between hello and world. Okay. If you tried up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Hey, Aisha, were you able to finish up to that point? About full action? Right, Kanil, were you able to got up to this far?
Yes.
Yes, Yumi? Okay, thanks then. So I'll assuming that you have already finished up to this point. So please lower your hands. Thanks. Right, now I'm going to talk about bit more about this. Right, let me show you. Let me get back to getting help. Now what you have seen is getting help using help function. Now earlier we have discussed print function, but in help, if you type any Python command, so it will give you help, right? So that's easy. Or if you want to get general help, you can just type brackets. So to get the general help, you can just type help without anything in between. So you can say open bracket and close bracket. And when you press enter, you will get a separate help window. In this particular case, there's a help prompt is there. So there you can type whatever you want. Now, for example, if I want to get more details about the help print, I can say print, and then it will give us the documentation for print function. But if you want to come out, you can say quit, and then you can come out from the help. Okay, any questions? Are you okay up to this point? Okay, I'll switch to the next one then. Right, next. Right, we are going to look at how variables as well as constant as well as data types are defined in Python. So let me first start with the constants, and then we are going to look at the variables. So basically, you know, the constants will be fixed. The values will not change during the program execution. But then again, we need sometimes create variables to hold temporary hold values. Now, when it comes to constants, so you can actually use numbers or strings as what we call literal constants, which will not, change during the program execution. So Python has actually different ways of representing numbers. Now, for integer values, you can represent like this without a decimal point. Then Python take this as a integer value. But if you include a decimal point, then it will consider as a floating point, right? And even integer value, let's say 5 with a decimal point, will treat as a floating point. And the third one is the other way, that is like scientific notation, scientific form, how you may represent a number. So this is similar to 9.25, right? So this is similar to 9, sorry. Right? This is similar to 9.25 into 10 to the power minus 3, right? So this is similar to 9.25, 10 to the power minus 6. So let me quickly show you, so you can go and try these numbers. Just enter and see what will happen in Python. Right, so if you use type 5, Python take it as a 5, 1.23, it will take it 1.23. What I told you earlier is even if you type 5 with a decimal point, right, 5.0, let's say, it will take it as a floating point number. And even some cases you might see like this, 5 with a decimal point, right? Then again, it will take it as a, yes, floating point number. Right, the third one, we are going to talk about the scientific way of representing numbers. And that particular case, we can put 9.25, right, e to the power minus 3. So I told you this is 9.25 into 10 to the power minus 3, which means 0.00925. Okay, quick small question. If you know the answer, you can type in the chat. What if I put 1 E2? What will be the output? So remember, this is 1 into 10 to the power 2. 1 into 10 to the power 2 means 100, but remember, it will take it as a floating point number. Somebody remember, you have to have a floating point number. So this is 1 into 10 to the power 2, right? 10 to the power 2 means 100. 1 into 100 means 100, but remember, this is a floating point number. So this is how it will treat. But then again, if you need, 100 without any decimal place, then we have like converter functions or typecasting. If you have already learned in some other programming languages, yes, we can do that. Okay, now let me go back. Right, then again, string values, the messages. Now in Python, to represent messages, you can use either single quote or double quote, right? So let me again go back to the Python shell, right? So if it is like dialog, we can represent like this or using double quotes. Sorry, I missed the end, double quotes, right? So it will take it as a string value. But if you ask me like why there are two ways of doing this, because for example, let's say the second one here, it's a string. If I try to type it using single quote, this is what will happen, right? So I'm going to say it's a string. So I can say, okay, single quote, it, single quote, s string. And if you finish with a single quote, you see now Python interpreter will confuse us. Why? You have a single quote to indicate that it's a string value. Then again, this with this one, now Python thinks that, okay, this is the end. So you see that. So this part is in green color, this part is in black color, right? So if you type this, it will get a syntax error. But if you use double quotes, it's a string, then there's no error, because you know that double quotes represent the start and end of it. So what you need to remember, whenever you want to use single quotes within a text, then use double quotes. If you want to use double quotes, then use single quote. Now things like this. If I want to say, let's say, hi with double quotes, so I can type it like this. So let me print it, print single quote, double quotes, hi, single quote like this. So you see, you will get with the double quotes. But if you use double quotes with double quotes, then you will get an error. Right, numbers. So further discussion on the number types available in Python. So we have integer type. Integer means like you have whole numbers. It could be positive, it could be negative, doesn't matter. And then we have floating point numbers, the number with the decimal value, decimal point. Now here you will see 508, and here we have 508.0. So even with 0 point, so this will take as a floating point in Python. Then e to the power, we already discussed, that is like 8.056 into 10 to the power 6. So here we say e indicates the power of 10, and you are getting this answer. Then there are complex numbers, which I'm not going to explain to you, but if you are interested and if you have done electrical and electronics, if you have some background, you know that sometimes we want to represent complex numbers as well, like -5 plus 4j, 2.3 minus 4.6j, and so on. So that is also supported in Python. Now, how do you know how computer understand these types? So that's exactly what we are going to learn here. With the type, we can identify, right? Type, we can identify what values are available, right? Now, for example, if I take my previous code, I will go back. Right now, let's say, now if you want to know like what is the type of something, let's say I have a number 508. Let's say I want to know what is the data type of this number, then you will get output saying, okay, class C. So here class in means it says that this number is from integer class, int class in short. Similarly, if you type 5.8.0, if you have a decimal point, definitely Python will consider it as a floating point number. Similarly, if you say, okay, type hello world with single quote, Python considered this as a string value. Similarly, if you use double quotes, right, Python will consider it as a string value. But if you type something like this, you will get an error. If you say 1 comma, let's say 1 million, don't type it like this with commas, because comma means something else. So you just have to type the number only, like 1 with the 6 zeros like this, without any commas. So comma has a special meaning, which we will discuss later on with the numbers. Okay, if you finish up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Right. Now let's talk more about string values. Thanks, guys. You can lower your hands now. Now let me talk about string formally. As I told you earlier, you can either use single quotes or double quotes. But remember that if you have like single quotes inside your strings, you can go for double quotes. Or if you have double quotes inside, then you can go for single quotes. The next one, there's another version where you can type multi-line strings. That means, let's say we want to represent multiple lines, then you can use either 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes. Right? So let me show you some examples. Okay. So let me go back. Right. Now let's say I want to type, right? Let's say I'm going to say, okay, print single quote dialog. And let me try to press enter. This will give you an error. Because if you use single quote, it will not allow you to type, go to the next line. So I can use triple quote. So I can use triple quote. I'm going to say dialog, right? Okay, we can say data analytics. Triple single quotes, which will give you like 2 lines, 2 text lines. So remember, so in Python, single quotes, or you can use double quotes for single lines. But if you want to print multiple lines of string, you should use triple single quotes or triple double quotes. Okay. Now, can you tell me, like, can you give me answers for this in the chat? You can copy paste your code in the chat, right? So here is the example. I want you to come up with 2, right? By the way, let me change this. So what's your name should be in a single line, not in 2 lines. So you might confuse. Let me quickly change. Right, okay, like this. So give me the command in the chat. I want everyone of you to try. I want you to type the command for these 2. First of all, how to print what's your name with a single quote and a question mark. And the second one, how do you print dialog with double quotes? Yes, I received answers from Menaka and Shiraz. How about the others? Okay, good. I'm getting answers. So what do you need to remember? If you have a single quote, then you can use double quotes. If you have double quotes in your string, then you can use single quote. Right, but there are many ways you can do this. So let me briefly explain that one. So there are many possibilities are there, right? So let me show you like some of ways that you can actually type it. Now we want to say, what's your name? It's a string. So either you have to use single quotes or double quotes. Since the single quotes there itself, I'm going to say, okay, print. I can say double quotes and what's your name with a question mark, and I can finish with double quotes. So which you will get, what's your name, like this. Likewise, if you want to get double quotes, then you can use single quote. So we can say print single quote, double quote, dialog, then double quote, single quote, you close the bracket. So which you will get double quotes like this. Okay, but there are other methods as well. Now you know what will happen if you say print single quote, what's your name? This is not allowed. You will get an error. But then you can correct with another way, is you can use escape characters, which we will discuss later on. You can use backslash, right? Just to ignore, say that ignore this one, right? And then you will see you can print it. So what you have to get from here is, if you have a, yes, single quote inside, you can use double quotes. Or if you have double quotes, then go for index. And then you can use escape characters just to ignore that. And this is exactly what I have done here. Right. Any questions you might have? Okay, so let's move on to the next one then. Right. Now let's talk about variables used in Python. Now I told you like what we have discussed so far is the constant values. And there are numbers, there are strings and so on. But the variables as we provide a name which we call identifier to identify something. So it could be integer value, it could be floating point value and so on, right? Now, another thing that you need to remember is how do you form variable names or identifiers? So here are the rules. The first character should be a letter. And then again, apart from that, you can use underscore. Right. So the first character should be an English letter, or you can even use underscore. Right. And after the first character, the remaining ones, you have to have characters, letters, underscores, or digits. So there's one addition. You can even have digits. Right. The third one, identifier names are case sensitive. Right. Remember, this is again very, very important. If you type something called my name with all simple or my name with N capital, right? So you see the so my name and my name looks similar, but they are different. So let's look at some valid identifiers. So I is a valid one. And then underscore, underscore, my underscore home, this is also okay. Then we have name underscore 23. And then A1, B2 underscore C3. So you see that when you look at the first character, either it could be a letter or it could be underscore. Okay. And here are some invalid names, like are two things. Can you have like, say, spaces like, no, you can't, right? So this is two words. And this is spaced out, my name, right? And it says, this is not in quotes, right? Now, for example, last one, what is wrong? So you see double quotes are there. Right. Now let's look at some of the examples. Now, can you try the 3 lines given to you? And then once we finish, can you comment on these 3 lines? Okay, let's start. So left hand side and right hand, there are 2 sides of it. So this is a Python statement. So left hand side, you should have, normally you have a variable name. Now, what do you think about the first variable name, this one? Is it valid or is it invalid? Yes, Shiraz, it's invalid, right? How about the second one? More dollar. What do you think about the variable? Is it valid or invalid? Dulakshi? Dulakshi, what do you think? The second line, more dollar. Is it valid variable name or is it not valid in Python? Yes, Tulakshi, it's not valid, right? Because dollar is not supported. How about the last one? Right? So the last one is also not valid. So looks valid, but it's not. Let me explain why class is not valid. Now you know that Python has its own set of what we call keywords. When we write Python programs, this is the set of words that we will use to write the program. Use of any of these will generate a problem. Right? Now the class is one of the keyword values when you need to provide. So in this particular case, you see there are like a couple of keywords there. You cannot use them as identifiers. So make a note of that. So it's invalid. So you cannot use class, you can have, you can't have else, global, these keywords you cannot use in Python. So make a note of this. Right. Now let's look at the assignment. So we have already seen this in previous one. So there are like 3 assignments. But then again, the question was whether they are valid or not. Right. So all the 3 are incorrect. All the 3 variable names are invalid. Right. Now let's look at assignment in a formal way. Now, especially when you want to hold data in the memory. Right. So the data will be stored in memory. And usually we can actually give a identifier or place. Now, for example, when you say a equals 10 in Python, in random access memory, it will allocate some space for A. So similar to B and similar to C as well. Right? So let me go to the shell. So I'm going to say, okay, we have A equals 10. So we can go to say A equals 10. So what happened? What is inside A? Now it's 10, right? You need to say print A, it will print 10. Now then again, we will see B equals A. When you say B equals A, actually the B value was determined by A. Since A, right? We have B equals A. Now what will happen? If you take B, B also 10. Right? Now let's have another variable, let's say C. I'm going to say C is A plus B, which means if you want to say C, right, the value of C is 20. Similarly, let me show you like some examples assignment. Now, for example, here we will say greeting is hello world and the name of the variable is greeting and the type is str. Right? And then look at the second one, we will say n equals 17. The variable name is n. The type is integer value 17. Third, we have pi equals 3.14 name pi and the type is float. Right? So in this particular case, you have a decimal point. So the Python will treat it as a floating point. Right. Any questions up to this point? Now in this one, we have a greeting. Right. Third one, we have pi equals 3.14. When you say type, you will get as a floating point value, float. So now, given something, you can identify its data type. Right. Let's look at some statements in Python. Right. Now you can type expressions using values, variables, operators, also like functions. Right. So in this particular case, 1 plus 1, so the plus is the addition, 1 plus 1 is the data. So when you say 1 plus 1, so you will get 2. Right? Then let's take a plus b, two variables. Right? Again, this can be considered the Python statement, no issues. And then finally, you can have available functions like len function. Will tell you how many times this repeats. Right. For example, let me just show you the len one. Others, I think, okay. So what we are going to say is len. It will give you the length of what? And then you can say hello. Right? You will get a length. That means it will give you number of characters inside the string. Okay, any questions up to this point? Is it clear? Okay, so len simply is a built-in function. Actually, you can type in the at as well. Right. Right. So let's move to the operators and then procedures. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about in Python is use of different operators and operands. Now, for example, if you take 2 plus 3, the 2 is the operator, sorry, operand, and the operator is plus. So if I say, let me take, right, 2 plus 3. Right? So these are operators, and this is operands. We have operands. Right. Now let's look at some examples. Arithmetic operations. Addition, we have plus sign. Subtraction, we have minus sign. Multiplication, to represent that, we use a single star. Then division with a slash. And the double one, we have two stars for exponentiation or to the power something. And then we have two slashes, which means integer division. Whatever you have given to you, you will get the integer part of it, integer part of it. And finally, modular division. That means you divide number by something and you look at the remainder, right? So let me again quickly show you the working of this, right? So we can have like 10 plus 5, yes, 15, like 3 minus 4, that is minus 1, 10 divided by 3, you have 3 point something. Right, now let's look at the power of something. So 2 to the power 9, this is how you are going to write. So 2 to the, right, 2 to the power 10, so that is 1024. Then again, division, integer division, we can say 10 divided by 3. But here we have two slashes, meaning, right, you will get 3. Okay. Now the next one, when you are given a problem, you have to look for order of operations, PEMDAS, we call it. So that the meaning of this is parenthesis is the highest precedence, exponentiation has the next highest precedence, and then multiplication and both division have the same precedence. Okay, remember, kind of a confusion. Multiplication, division, the order is not important. Yes. And the addition of subtraction also have the same procedure. Yes, that's also we are going to do. And operators within the same procedure are evaluated from left to right. Right. Okay, here are like couple of questions that you could try. So that I will share with you. Right. And maybe for the time being, can you quickly work on this and let me know the answers by hand? So what is the answer for the first one? 5 plus 6 into 7 plus 8. So when you take plus, multiplication plus, which one has the highest priority? So what happened? Multiplication happened first. So that is 42 plus 47 and 82, I guess. Yes, exactly. It says 55, right? So if it's better, you will not use Python to get the answer. So this is 67, 40, 42, 80, 50, 50 plus 5, 55. Yes, can you quickly tell me the answer for the others as well? So let me say this is the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one, seventh one, eighth one. Okay, you can try for all the Right, I got answers up to second point. Okay, keep on working on this one. Okay, fourth one is interesting because if you just put -2 into 4, you will get -16. So you will get -16. But if you put a brackets only, you will get +60. So make a note of this one. Okay, so you can try the answer in the you can check your answers with the in the Python shell. Right. Let me finish today's session with this one. How about the operation on strings? Right. Now let me take this one. Right. So if you just say string value, can we say something like adding something to dialog? You can't work, right? Because the plus operator will not work because the string adding and one, no, it's not going to work, right? So if you say 1 plus 2, this will not work. But if both are string values, right, then you see it will not really addition, it will concatenation. So remember this. If both values are string, then you can concatenate them. Right now, for example, we have a banana space plus nut bread. You can glue these together. It will become a single string. Right? Even in the first one, we said dialog. I can add 1 as a string value, so it will glue these two together. So understanding would be enough. So that means string operation. There's no addition, but you can have concatenation if both values are right. If both values are string values. Then the last one, right? So subtraction division will not work, but if you multiply a string with a number like this, remember you have a string value with a number, so it will repeat itself. So this has an interesting output. Now, for example, if you do like this, let's say 30, you'll get a similar pattern, textual patterns like this. If I try with the dashes, this is how it will look like. Or if you try with underscores, this is how it look like. So this is called repetition. Right? So make a note of this one as well. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to cover for today. I actually went very slowly with the Python basics. We look at different types of ways of representing Python numbers as well as strings. And then, and finally, we discuss, we can work on with the arithmetic operators, the different operators are there, and also the calculations. And finally, we also look at operations on string. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to upload the handout, the things that we have done, as well as the video in the Google Classroom that which I'm going to create today. And then also I will also have a WhatsApp group where we can discuss general stuff on Python. Okay, with that note, I would like to finish for today. Let's meet on Friday. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.